The battle for the mind of North America will be fought in the video arena.
We're starting at the normal 10 after 7. I call it farmer time. Max, this light is really bright. Okay. It's bright. Welcome, everyone. It's been kind of a crazy week for me, not this week so much, but last week I hosted 4 APP meetings in a row: Hannah, Killam, New Sarepta, and out at Lakedale. Wow. Yeah, it was a wow. So Mitch Sylvester and Dennis Modry. Well, I didn't see Dennis the last day. I got favored with Tanner and Tanya Clemens. So welcome. I don't have my notes in front of me because I wasn't kind of expecting this. We will start with prayer. That's what we'll do. That's how I know we can do that. Father God, we just thank you and praise you for this evening. We thank you for the beautiful weather for harvesting, And we pray for safety, all those in tractors and combines and swathers and balers and whatever other piece of machinery is operating. We thank you, Lord, for the harvest that you bring, that we know that when we put seed in the ground, we put wheat seed in, wheat will come up. And that is your surety that you are the creator. And even though we grumble and we complain about the weather because it doesn't seem right, we know we're not in control and that you are. Father, we pray for our province. We pray for our country. It seems to be all upside down. So, Father, as we go forward and we work towards independence for Alberta, we ask that you be in our thoughts, in our words, and in our actions, so that we come through clear and true and not looking like a bunch of clowns. Because, Father, you have given us this country, and we ask that you bless this movement, and we thank you and praise you. Amen. As usual, we have a donation box out there, and most of you put something in it on the way. We won't pass it around tonight, or should we pass it around, Shane? Well, we'll pass it around at some point. Thank you all for coming. It's hot. It's not too bad in here, so we're very grateful. So we have a speaker tonight that I have not heard. I've heard great things, but I have not heard her. And I have no bio to give you because I don't know anything. So if you'll please welcome Kathy Flett.
Thank you. It is always interesting when we go to these things and people know the face, they know the name, but they maybe don't know a lot of story. And that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing. There's a whole bunch of us that are in this movement. There's a bunch of voices that are within Alberta going around and talking about our independence and why we need to pursue that. And myself and my good friend Angela Tabak are two of those voices. She and I actually met when we were part of the Wild Rose Independence Party of Alberta. Some of you might remember that and the tribulations that came with. And we learned a lot in that experience. My history in this movement actually goes back to 2019 with the Wexit movement. And I was one of those folks that was on stage in Edmonton and in Red Deer and in Calgary. And I watched that fall completely apart before my eyes. And so once that was done, I had to, okay, Lord, now literally, like, Lord, where do you want me? I don't even know what I'm doing here. And all of this stuff is happening that I don't understand. And I went home and it legitimately was about 40 days later, I get this phone call asking to meet for breakfast in this restaurant in Red Deer. And I'm not told exactly who I'm going to meet. I'm just asked by somebody that I did know to come. And though I didn't have a lot of experience in the political realm, I've always been involved politically. I'm actually a Northern Alberta girl by trade. I grew up in Peace River, and most of my adult life was spent in Fort McMurray. And I always tried to be educated and vote and do so wisely and all the rest, but I'd never really jumped in. So this was my first go in 2019. And so anyways, I get invited to this breakfast, and I brought a friend with me who's ex-military because I just wasn't sure what to expect. And it turned out okay. It was fine. And what it was is basically some guidance as to where to go from there. So I joined the FCP, Freedom Conservative Party, which then changed its name to the Wild Rose Independence Party. And that's when the education really began, to see what goes on behind the scenes in politics, and particularly within these parties. It's really quite outstanding, actually. And every time in this movement, we hear, and this movement is nothing new. This has been going on for decades that we've had an independence movement. And every time something happens where there's a party that's destroyed or a group of people that's destroyed, there's always egos that are blamed. Oh, it's just these stupid separatists. They can't even they can't get themselves together. They're all too independent minded. Everybody wants to be on top, and it's kind of this crabs in the bucket mentality. After what I've seen twice now, well, 3 times really, what I can tell you is that's only half true. What actually happens within these movements is the forces that cannot stand the idea of Alberta being our own country, they come in, and there's lots of them, and they're global, right? They come in and they start to meet the people, the movers and the shakers that are involved, and they find the low-hanging fruit. What if I offer you this? What if I promise you that? What if we do this? What if we do that? And then they pull it down from the inside. That's what happens every single time. So this time, those of us in this movement, a little wiser, a little smarter. We've got Angela and I, who continued to go even after Wild Rose fell apart, and thought, okay, well, what do we do now? Well, we decided to run in the provincial election as independent candidates, knowing completely well we're not going to win, but you'll get no better education than to just jump in and go. And we actually, both of us did fairly well, considering we were independent candidates. Really, really irritated the MLAs that are in now. They are both UCP MLAs. And learned a lot. You've got 28 days to make every single mistake on the planet and not one moment to fix any of them. It's great. Like, there's just no responsibility by the time it was done. So after we were finished campaigning and slept for about a week because we were exhausted, we said, okay, well, now what do we do? Where does God want us to go? And so we just sort of sat on that for a little bit. And then in March, this idea came. We started to see things bump back up again. This independence, there was an appetite for it. People were talking about it again. The UCP government, it kind of settled down, and we sort of figured out where they were going to go and what they were going to do. And we were Zooming, having a conversation, because she lives way south by Waterton, and I'm in Sherwood Park, and this idea landed out in this conversation. We're missing the women. We're missing the women. The men in this movement are completely like, yep, let's go, let's do this. But they far outnumber the women. And then we sat there and went, well, why? What's going on here? What are we missing? And the more we explored it, and the more we kind of went around talking to other people and trying to figure this out, we realized and recognized that the independence message that is typically given, comes from men. And even in APP, with the exception of Tanya, just starting now, it's typically come from men. It's typically an aggressive message. And women don't, I mean, some of us don't care, but we are the exception. We're not the norm. Most women will not take to that aggressive message. And women, we like to fix things, right? You men, this is what I love to describe to people. Men are like waffles. Women are like spaghetti. Men have got all these compartments in their lives, like a waffle does, right? And you guys, you focus on that one compartment. And if you can't figure out what to do with that one compartment, you will beat it off with the biggest sledgehammer you can find and move on to the next one. That's just how you're wired. It's just how God made you. Women, on the other hand, the way that God made us is like this plate of spaghetti. Every strand of spaghetti is something in our lives. It's our kids, it's our husbands, it's our jobs, it's our community, it's our church, it's our whatever. And all those strands, they all intertwine. Like we literally have 100 tabs up at the same time in our heads. If you think about it as a laptop or a computer, right? It is all intertwined. And then when you bring this meatball of independence and you smash it onto our plate of spaghetti, we are scrambling mess trying to get all those spaghetti noodles back on the plate and incorporate the meatball. So as we were thinking about this, it's okay, well, what's the disconnect with the ladies? How come they're not getting it? Why won't they just smash that waffle apart? Like, it's not going to work. It's because there's still hope. Well, what if? Well, what if? Well, what if? So we designed our message for women to show you there's no other option. We're going to walk through that tonight. We're going to walk through it together. Gentlemen, you might get a little bit frustrated with me because there are no pitchforks and there are no torches. Okay? Like, it's just nothing like that. It's just facts. It's just figures. It's just our history. But I want you to listen to it as well, because there's women in your lives that will need to hear the message this way in order to be convinced that this is the way to go. The other thing that we noticed is in smaller group settings, which is typically what we'll do. We meet in people's living rooms, in their backyards, in their kitchens, wherever. If there are more men than women, the women won't talk. I don't know why. One day I'm hoping to meet Jordan Peterson and he can explain it to me. It just is. It just is. But the minute that balance goes the other way and there's more women than men in the room, the women will not stop talking. They just won't. And so when we're doing our home meetings, we say, yeah, our message is for women. We want to have hen parties all over Alberta to help these women get their concerns figured out. What about my pension? What about my kids? What about healthcare? What about schooling? What about this? What about that? We're the nurturers. And we need to know the answers to those questions. So that's why we meet in women's homes and where we're comfortable. We love to cook and bake and serve people. So this is what we're doing. And the women are getting those questions answered in a way that's comfortable for them. If you think I'm off my rocker on this, the next time you're at a big town hall meeting, count how many men go up to ask a question versus women. And then you'll see for yourselves that that's the way it is. So, with all that said, I will take you through, typically when we're doing the home meetings, I just have a little handout that I hand out. I don't do this whole thing in a home meeting because that's really uncomfortable. But in a bigger setting like this, we have this. It's just easier to go through the PowerPoint. So ladies, if you've got a bunch of other ladies in your lives that are they're not there yet, they're not sure about this, they've got questions, they're looking for answers, and they would like a safe place to be able to get those questions answered, please invite me to come. I've been as far down as High River, as far north so far as High Prairie. It doesn't matter. We will go. If it's only 5 women at your kitchen table, I don't care. We need to get the message out to the ladies in a way that they can understand it, and we need to make sure that all of their fears and their concerns are abetted so that we can move forward with this referendum. Does that sound good? Okay, so without further ado, now I will share the message with you, so that you can vet me, if you will, and find out what exactly it is we're going to talk about when I come to your house. So the first thing is how did we get here? How did we as Albertans even get here? In order to figure out the present and certainly the future, it's really important that we take a look at the past. Our problems go way back, further than most people even recognize. This is a quote that I came across. The people of the Northwest are allowed but a degree more control of their affairs than the serfs of Siberia. Now, the Northwest in this case was Alberta and what we know today as Saskatchewan, because it began that we were territories of the province of the Northwest Territories. The Northwest Territories were not only what we know today. Our 2 provinces were actually a part of that along with a bunch of other land. And I'll show you a map of that later on. So that's the Northwest that's being referred to here. Allowed but a degree more control of their affairs than the serfs of Siberia. Frank Oliver said that. You know Oliver in downtown Edmonton? The neighborhood? Named after this guy. Frank Oliver, publisher of Edmonton's first newspaper in August 1885. Not even a province yet. And already that tension was existing. It was here. But it doesn't stop there. You guys have heard this one before. We desire, every patriotic Canadian desires, that the great trade of the prairie shall go to enrich our own people in the East, to build up the factories and the workshops of Eastern Canada, and to contribute in every way to its prosperity. My friends, this is the original elbows up, isn't it? It's been around a long time. That was the Minister of Interior, Sir Clifford Sifton, said that in 1904, right before we became a province, just the year before. Now, at that time, we were being advertised as the last best West. And if you look on this map, so this part is Alberta, this is Saskatchewan, then we've got the district of Assiniboia, and we've got the district of Athabasca. So all of this were the Northwest Territories. And so that's what Oliver was talking about. And we were being advertised right in here as the last best west. Come on over, bring your families, bring your plows, bring your cows, let's go. It's going to be great. This is the land of milk and honey. We're not telling you that there's major snakes in the south and nothing but cold in the north, but just come here anyway. And so people did, predominantly from the U.S., but also from Europe. And came here on a Women of Prayer with a dream that they were going to be able to make something once they arrived. And many of them did. Many of them most certainly did. But as time progressed, they were getting very frustrated with the politics at hand and the political structure that is the Westminster system that we live under. And the word that these guys used when these lawyers and businessmen got together was autonomy. We don't have enough autonomy to get things done. We've got 3 years to get this land figured out, something grown on it, and a house there, but we can't do anything because their closest premier, who at that time was Haultain, was in Regina, and then of course Ottawa has been where Ottawa always is. And this was well before phones, let alone text and email. So to try and get anything going was remarkably slow. So these guys got together and they said, we want some autonomy, and we also would like some local representation. Sound familiar? Yeah. So they batted around some ideas. And Haultain, our premier at the time, who was actually a really good guy, came and met with them and said, okay, well, let's talk this out. What do you think? What if we take Saskatchewan and Alberta and make the province of Buffalo? That was the idea that they came up with. Now, remember the Buffalo Declaration of 2019, I think it was, that Michelle Rempel and a handful of other MPs came up with, and then they were all unceremoniously backbenched for it? This is, you got to look that up. That's pretty impressive. This is the genesis of that name. The Buffalo Declaration came from us. We wanted to be the province of Buffalo. The Republican Party, before it was the Republican Party, the name was the Buffalo Party, right? This is the genesis of that. And Haultain, of course, who's got all of this territory to manage and to serve, is like, you know what, this is a brilliant idea. I get y'all off my back so you can go do whatever you want. You can have your own thing. And so off he goes to Ottawa, where all great ideas go to die. And of course they said no. And they took an eraser and a ruler and a pencil to the map and created Alberta and Saskatchewan. That's how Alberta and Saskatchewan were created. The Alberta Act of 1905 and the Saskatchewan Act of 1905. And then the map looked a little bit more like this in 1905. So you can see where Alberta is and you can see where Saskatchewan is. And then, since then, obviously, there's been some growth because we know that more of this is Manitoba, and Ontario is stretched up a little bit, and Quebec is also stretched up a little bit. But this is what it looked like in 1905 when Alberta and Saskatchewan both became a province. Oops, wrong way. We were colonized. That's just a fact. Now, when we look at all of the provinces, we see that when the original Dominion of Canada was created and put together, it was Ontario and Quebec, right? Upper and Lower Canada, Plains of Abraham, big old scrap between the English and the French. Finally, they figured it out, and they got themselves sorted out. So they had Upper and Lower Canada, Quebec and Ontario. But then they decided to bring in two more provinces as bookends, which would be Manitoba and New Brunswick. Now, Manitoba did negotiate their way somewhat. Ottawa was still a little bit cranky about the whole Louis Riel thing, property rights, autonomy, all the things they don't like over there. But they still let them negotiate their way in a bit. New Brunswick also negotiated their way into Confederation. British Columbia came on board, also negotiated their way into Confederation. Remember, that was to keep the U.S. out. Right? Because they were getting ready to join forces with Alaska. They had already bought Alaska. They wanted to have their own way, like right up there along the coast. And so the Canadian government at the time said, oh, absolutely not. And they took over what we know today as British Columbia and brought that into Confederation. The other two maritime provinces that I've already clicked on, so Prince Edward Island and Nova Scotia, negotiated their way in. Newfoundland was the last one to negotiate their way in. In the 1950s, they held out for a long, long time. We did not. We were brought in. There was not even a legislature building here. There was nobody at the table to say, this is what we want, this is what we don't want. It was, this is what you're all going to get. That's the foundation that our two provinces have been built on. So now we move forward. You can see the map as we know it today, and these are the Senate seats that we have representing us in the House of Commons. We've got the upper chamber and the lower chamber. This is the upper chamber. It's supposed to be the sober second thought of Senate seats, and part of those negotiations, of course, for all of the other provinces was how many Senate seats they're going to get. And as time progressed, these are the numbers that have eventually all been settled on. So when you're looking at these numbers, hoping you can see them in the back too, what do you notice? Yeah, it's a little lopsided, don't you think? Just a little? It's a little lopsided, but that was part of the negotiations. So now, if we add in the seats in the House of Commons, or Parliament, seats, Senate and Parliament seats, so all these black numbers down here, these are the seats in the House of Commons. 43, 37, 14, 14, 122, 78, 74, 11, and 10. What do you notice? We're still a little lopsided. Just a little. Just a little. But, you know, it's supposed to be population by, or representation by population, right? Isn't that what all the comments say on the National Post whenever we have a complaint? Too bad, so sad. It's representation by population. Well, let's see about that. If we look at the Senate, Prince Edward Island has almost 45,000 people per senator. Newfoundland, almost 91,000 per senator. Quebec, 377,000 per senator. Manitoba, 229 per senator. And then there's Alberta. Almost 815,000 per senator. Is that representation by population? No. And PEI is the smallest, and we are the largest. There's nobody bigger. So now if we look at members of parliament, PEI, same number, because they have the same number of MPs as they do senators, and I'll explain that to you in a second. Newfoundland, 78,000 almost. Quebec, 116. Manitoba, almost 107. Alberta, 132. Is that representation by population? No, it is not. The other thing we need to keep in mind when we're looking at these numbers, of course, they're a bit closer together, certainly here and here, than they are down here. And one has to ask, well, how can that possibly be that we can get more MPs per population? And we just did in the last federal election. Alberta actually got 3 more MPs. We got 3 more electoral districts because of our population. But the senator numbers never change. And that's because of a senatorial clause that came on board a handful of decades ago that said whatever number of senators you have right now in your province, that's where it stays. Doesn't matter what your population will ever be, these are the number of senators you're going to have, and you cannot have fewer MPs than you do senators. That's why Prince Edward Island has an equal number, even though their population doesn't warrant it. That's why New Brunswick does, and Nova Scotia is very close, as is Newfoundland. There's a law in the books that says they can't have fewer MPs than they do senators. I don't think that's fair. But maybe that's just me. Our grievances are long and obviously predate us even becoming a province. But let's just look at some in very recent memory. In 1970s, the Independent Alberta Association was created. In the 1970s, this really began to pick up steam as people were getting sick and tired of the garbage that was going on around here. Trudeau Sr.'s NEP Some of us remember that better than others, but those of us that were just little certainly do remember that something was not right, because you could feel it in every home in this province. Mulrooney did take his time to end it. He was voted in saying that he would end it, but he took his sweet time doing it. Canadian Wheat Board, established in 1935. It was privatized in 2015. Saudi owns 50.1% of it. You know who did that? Harper. Equalization. None of us knew what equalization was until we had Notley and Trudeau duo for 4 years. I've often said the dumbest thing Trudeau ever did was put Albertans out of work, because we don't do well just sitting and doing nothing. And we all started reading and finding out what exactly is going on around here. Suddenly we all know what equalization is. On that note, does anybody know how that equalization formula works? Not really? It's this very long, convoluted formula that basically takes 50% of our resource revenue and adds that to the kitty, along with a whole bunch of other things that are all part of that formula, and then distributes it amongst all the provinces across this Commonwealth nation that we live in under the Westminster system, so that smaller provinces never go without and richer provinces can help them out, right? On the surface, that sounds really good. And that's fine, except the way that it's written, a handful of years ago, when we were this close, like we were tipping into depression, we weren't just recession, we were tipping into depression territory, we still didn't qualify for $1 of payment. We still paid in. Newfoundland experiences the same thing. And the reason for that is because the resource revenues that are included in that formula do not include Quebec's. Do you know who did that? Harper. He changed the equalization formula to make it our resource revenue 50% goes to Ottawa automatically, but Quebec's, none of theirs does. So every barrel of oil that goes, when our premier is bragging, and rightfully so, about how much money the province made in sales in our oil and gas exports that go out, that exact same amount went to Ottawa. So when someone is saying, oh, well, we can't afford to be independent, we just got a raise the minute we got Ottawa out of our hair. Instantly. Yeah, and that was Harper that did that, because he wanted those votes, because he knows that ours don't matter. They don't really count. We've got a dairy, egg, and poultry supply management problem around here that favors the East. I call them cartels. Some people call them management. Supply management. This is one of the things that's got Trump's knickers in a knot, and understandably so. It should have Albertans in a knot as well. C-69, C-48, carbon tax, billions in canceled projects. For what? Because they don't want to see us thrive. That's all it is. They just cannot stand the thought of us thriving. EI rule changes to favor the East over the West. Did you know that? That's not very good. Over contributing to the CPP. People tell me, oh, but Kathy, you get it all back. Whatever you put in, you get back. No, you don't. No, you don't. And then you've got the other folks that say, oh, but the CPP made 10%. Don't touch my CPP. Did you get a 10% raise? No, you didn't. And when people start to talk to you about CPP, 9 times out of 10, they don't actually know how that works either. And the way, now very simplified, mind you, but the way that it works is they take how much you made and how much you contributed for the first handful of years that you worked, how much you made, how much you contributed for the last handful of years that you worked, an average of how many years you worked at them in the middle, and then they spit out a number on the other side. It has nothing to do with your total contributions. It has nothing to do with how much it made that year or didn't. They're not going to tell you when it didn't make any money, because that's happened. It has everything to do with what you made and how many years you worked. not fund performance. Nothing about fund performance. And meanwhile, our senior citizens are barely hanging on because nobody bothered to explain to them that, oh, by the way, it's not going to replace every dollar you made the day before you retire. It's actually only made to replace a third. So then they go back to work when they should be enjoying their retirement. Yet the president and CEO of the CPPIB, the one that manages the whole fund, makes over $6 million a year in compensation. Isn't it? And they're worried about an Alberta pension plan. I was at one meeting, side story, a couple of years ago when the CPPIB was doing their annual tour that was like the first ever. We'd never seen them here before. And they were doing their tour around Alberta because we were all getting a little antsy and anxious about all of this. I made sure, I knew I was surrounded by people who thought that the CPP was amazing, right? I love going into the Lion's Den. And so I made mention that this is the deal. Like, you guys understand this, right? They've got offices, multi-million-dollar offices all over the planet, literally. They've got more staff than they know what to do with. And this is what the guy makes. And meanwhile, you're making sure that your mom has got food in the fridge and a roof over her head. And this one lady says to me, she says, well, hockey players make more than that. And I looked at her and I said, hockey player don't get my money unless I go to the game. And she went, right. You know, and it's just those kinds of conversations that we need to have with people to help them understand that they've been lied to. And nobody actually wants to admit that their government lied to them, but it happens here on an hourly basis. Ignoring democratically elected senators. Alberta is the only province that does elect our senators, but it's just a suggestion. They're rarely ever chosen. I think, to Harper's credit, he did choose a couple of them. But it's just to make us feel better. Which also, by the way, going back to that, if Pierre had won the last federal election, would it have mattered? No, because that Senate is stacked, right? That sober second thought, stacked with people that are completely against Albertans, including Albertans that sit in those Senate seats. And so nothing would have passed at all. We have been through numerous politically induced recessions, and do not let anybody tell you it was anything but. Just in my lifetime, there's been 7 of them, beginning with the NEP. Politically induced. All of this right here, politically induced. It has nothing to do with economics. It has nothing to do with need across the planet. Nothing to do with anything other than keeping Alberta down. That's it. Because if we get too strong in the West and the balance of power begins to shift, Ottawa knows they're in trouble. And they also keep our dollar low on purpose to help the manufacturing industry in the East. That's on purpose, even though it hurts us on this side. And then, of course, like we learned in COVID, this is a piece of shit. In 1915, this picture was going around in the local newspapers. It's the milch cow. I don't think anything has changed since then, has it? No, it has not changed. Now, ladies, this next part is specifically for you as we take another look at our Alberta history. Does anybody know who our famous 5 are? 1 in the room. Oh, good. I hate it when I'm talking and people are like, oh yeah, I already know that already, because then I feel like I can't share anything new with you. Our famous 5 are these ladies right here. All of them are from here. All of them lived here. Some were even born here. And they all made an impeccable mark on politics within our province over 100 years ago. The first one I want to talk about is Henrietta Edwards. She was the oldest, right here, and worked tirelessly to pave the way for these other 4 ladies to make sure that we had some representation. Emily Murphy was the next one. They worked very, very hard together. Emily Murphy is right here. And she was the one. Remember when we were kids and they used to have those little vignettes on CBC to teach us about our history? She was actually one of those vignettes. I remember it so well, probably because it was the only damn channel I had. But anyways, she was on there. She followed the laws of the day. Followed the laws of the day, using what was in the books to become the first woman magistrate in the whole entire Commonwealth. She was already part of the legal system working for a lawyer, but at that time, women were only allowed to rise to here because we were not yet persons under the law. These ladies did that. They worked tirelessly to make that happen. From here, not Ottawa, not Ontario, certainly not Quebec, Alberta ladies. After that, we've got Louise McKinney, first woman elected to the legislature in, right here, 1917. That is not that long ago. That is really not that long ago. First lady elected to our legislature, that big, beautiful white building in downtown Edmonton. First woman to grace the doors in there and sit in the chamber. Can you imagine what she must have gone through to make that happen? Especially so quickly. I mean, we were just nothing burgers the day before. Right? Really? And as far as the law was concerned, I'm not saying, obviously husbands and kids and all of that, but as far as the law was concerned, we were nothing burgers the day before. Now, suddenly, we are in the legislature. Nellie McClung was elected. She was the next one to come in. Well, actually the third one, but we'll get to that in a minute. Nellie McClung right here, elected in 1921. She was ready to go for it as well and roll up her sleeves. Irene Parlby, she ran under the United Farmers of Alberta, UFA, where we go and, gas up and get some stuff for our farms and whatnot. That actually began as a political party. Yeah, and Irene Parlby ran under their banner. She won a seat in 1921. She held it until 1935. These women were political trailblazers in this province. This, ladies, is our heritage. That's here. And I love these ladies, but this next one, she's my favorite. Roberta McAdams. In 1917, just before the provincial election. Now remember, we were still a baby province, right? We were only created in 1905. So in 1917, the Alberta Military Representation Act was put forward and passed to give representatives overseas in the First World War, or to give a chance, for us to have representation overseas in the First World War. And they said 2 people. You can pick 2 people who are part of the military to sit in the legislature on your behalf. So 20 men put their names forward, and this lady right here was encouraged to do the same. This is in 1917. And her... So she gets in there, she's like, okay, I can't even imagine how nervous she must have been, honestly, right? Like, you're not even in your own country, and they're saying, oh, yeah, you should put your name in. Like, you were only just persons under the law last week, but let's go, let's do this. So away she goes, and her slogan, you will have 2 votes at the forthcoming election under the Alberta Military Representation Act. Take 1 vote to pick the man of your choosing, and use the other to choose the sister. She won. She won. So she was actually the second lady to be brought into the legislature downtown. And the only reason the second is because, again, this was before phones and emails and all of that. It took them a while to count the ballots and let everybody back home know that she had won, along with her male counterpart. What these ladies went through just to get this is unimaginable. There was death threats. They were beat up. Some were put in prison for a little while. Can you think about what their husbands went through? Their children went through? Their extended family went through? This is what they did to become persons under the law. They suffered. They ran. And they won. When I hear women today say, oh, I don't want to get involved. It's too messy. It's too mucky. I want to pull my hair out. Like, are you kidding? The legacy that we have, and you don't want to get too messy or too mucky or get involved. Now, I get it. I've been in the trenches since 2019. It's mucky. It's messy. It's downright nasty. I get it. But we still have an obligation to, at the very least, educate ourselves on the facts and figures, not be afraid of the truth of what's out there, and then vote accordingly and support the people that are willing to get into the trenches rather than just stay home. It doesn't mean you have to be forward-facing. Not everybody is called to do that. Some of us are, but not everybody is. But all of us need support. And if that's your role, is to make sure that, you know, some of us have got food on the table when we get back from campaigning, that's awesome. That's really awesome. But we've got to make sure that we get ourselves back in the game. Because this government system is the way it is by design. This Westminster system, even though those ladies fought hard and they won and they did a great job, that didn't change the government system or the structure that I just described to you, with the seats designed the way that they are, which means it's a political solution or problem, and it needs a political solution. That's how we have to play this. We can't just get out there and go, oh, well, I don't like it, so too bad, I'm not paying equalization. Well, do you know where the equalization payment comes from? Off your paycheck. It's not our premier sending a check. Or, well, I'm just not going to do this. Okay, well, good luck with that. Like, it's so entertained. We've got to think of this as a political solution, which means if we want anything to change, we've got to open up the Constitution. You guys are spoiling my fun. We have to open up the Constitution. I had a conversation with a lady the other day, beautiful conservative. She's so cute. I just love her. And she says, well, but we could. Canadians are nice. We could open this up and we could talk this out. And I said, you really think so? She said, I do. I really do. I said, okay, well, vote yes on the referendum and let's see how that goes. Like, I still need your vote on that referendum. I think she will. But to open up the Constitution, as everybody in this room, I think, well knows, we need 7 premiers and 50% of the population. The amount of people that don't know that is astounding. But then they didn't teach it to us in school on purpose. So why would we know that, right? I didn't until I got in the trenches of all this mess. So then when we're having our home meetings, this is the part where I say, okay, so which 7 premiers are going to say, yeah, let's change it and make it better for Alberta and Saskatchewan? I think we only have 2 right now. And the territories don't count, by the way. I think we only have 2. So that's out. That's out. And when we're on our home meetings, this is kind of the moment where Angela and I end up in counseling mode. Because this is when the penny drops and the ladies realize, oh my gosh, we can't fix this. It's literally impossible by design. And for 120 years. Yeah. Exactly. So we have one option. We've got for a referendum on the Clarity Act. Clarity Act, not that clear, but it's what we have. Remember those ladies over 100 years ago used the law. They used the tools that they had to their advantage. The people that say, oh, well, we don't have to do this, we can just unilaterally declare. That day might come. We're not there yet. We got to follow the rules as they've been given to us until we can't. That's just it. It sucks and it's going to be long, but that's how it is. So we've got this Clarity Act. We need a clear question with a clear majority. The question has been submitted. I think it's pretty clear. We shouldn't have any issue with that. A lot of people are upset because Elections Alberta wanted a judge to have a look at it to make sure that it was constitutionally sound and okay and didn't contravene. We're wanting to get out of the country, so, or out of confederations. I don't really know how they're going to justify that, but this act says that, yeah, it's constitutionally sound. We're allowed to do this as Albertans. We don't even have to ask permission. We're allowed to do this. So when people get really upset with Elections Alberta, I like to remind them that what they're probably doing, now I don't work down there, I have dealt with Elections Alberta a lot. Does anybody even know who they are? Actually, I should stop at that. Okay, some do, some don't. No, they're not. Well, they're not supposed to be either. They're supposed to be nonpartisan, arm's length, and so what Elections Alberta does is they manage the elections. So they make sure that everybody's finances in their elections is all sound, that whoever was allowed to donate, donated, whoever wasn't allowed to donate, did not donate. If somebody did donate who wasn't supposed to, well, then you get a slap on the wrist, looking at you, David Parker, right? Like all of that. So that's what EA does, is they're the ones that sort of manage and police to make sure that the politicians are doing the right thing, at the very least with their money. And then they also manage all of the elections. So we're going into a municipal election right now. EA, Elections Alberta, will be managing and making sure there's enough staff for those. They manage the provincial ones. They do not manage the federal ones. That's different. That's Elections Canada. That's a whole other bag of worms. But this is what EA does. And so because this referendum is going to be on a ballot, it'll be managed as an election. They do, according to our laws, our provincial laws, have the right and the ability to call the question to the judge, to the Court of King's Bench. Is this question constitutionally sound, basically, is the long and short kind of my paraphrase of it. We know that it is. We think that it is. If EA wants to go this extra mile to make sure that all of their I's are dotted and T's are crossed, I don't have a problem with that. Because this is such a big deal. And it is such a contentious issue that could you imagine the backlash if they were blamed for bungling it up? Right? Then that just puts all of our provincial municipal elections at risk. And we've got a municipal election coming up in October. Right? We've already got so many trust issues with everything politics and politicians. So I get it. I get why they're trying to cover their behinds, and that's fine. I also find it pretty interesting. It goes to the Court of King's Bench. That's a federally appointed judge. So when that judge says, and I'm hopeful that he does, says, yeah, you know what? This question is fine. Let her buck. What's Ottawa going to say? It's their judge. We just took all the air out of their balloon. Really? We're just getting it all dealt with now. Even though, according to the Clarity Act, it's up to them, it's up to Ottawa to determine whether it's clear. Now, they could send it to the Supreme Court, but the Supreme Court did this. You're jumping. They could say no. They could say no, and we're back at square one. But then that also will probably really bolster our movement. Because now you've proven to even more people that they don't want us to go because we're the cash cow. Go ahead.
We don't need a court approval or anything else to actually do a referendum. The decision as to whether the question was clear can be made after the referendum. So the Alberta government has the ability to declare a referendum.
Yes.
Hold on.
They do. So the comment was that the provincial government has the ability to declare a referendum on their own. That's true. They very much do. I have an opinion on that too. I have an opinion on everything, but I do have an opinion on that as well. This has to come from us. Remember I said it was a political problem. It requires a political solution, but it has to come from the people, or else the politicians are going to be blamed when it goes wrong. Right? If Danielle Smith called this right now and said, oh, well, there's a municipal election coming, like what some people were calling for. Municipal election coming, just throw that on a separate ballot, we'll get her done. We would fail. It would fail. We do not have enough. Ready to check yes. Our premier knows this has to come from the people, or there's no steam in it at all. At all. So if it gets to the point where the federal government is dragging their heels, and I have every reason to believe they will. I'm sure they will. They're going to find something somewhere along the line to just continue to put thorns in our sides on this. Then, that's a good thing. Then we can put maybe some more pressure on our premier at that time. Not yet. This is not her job. It's not her role. It's ours. It's ours to do, and we need to band together to do it. Which takes me to my next comment about our premier. The people that are bashing her about this have to stop. She was not elected as a separatist. The UCP party, and I'm a member, is not an independence party. That's not their mandate. It's nowhere in any of their documents or any of their bylaws or any of their anythings. It's not there. So we cannot be ragging on her about this. Oh, well, she's not supporting us. Well, you know what? The other side that doesn't want to see us go independent is also saying the same thing. She's not supporting us. She's not putting an end to it. She right now has to walk such a tight line in the middle as the premier of a province in a country that is under the Westminster system, until she's given a firm mandate from the people to do anything different. So right now, let's just respect the process. And we're going to respect the rules. We're going to respect the laws until we can't. Just like those ladies did that I told you about. All of the work that they did, that was decades. That was not overnight. Now, I don't think this will take decades. My gosh, I surely hope not. I want to still have my sanity and see it across the finish line. But this is the process we're given. So we need a clear question. We need a clear majority. Who decides the clear majority? Ottawa. They might say 85%. Who knows?
I don't think they can. I don't think they can because they said to Quebec, you need 50+1. I don't think they can.
Because they said to Quebec 50+1 was a clear majority?
The precedent is set.
Well, that's cool. It wouldn't surprise me if they decide not to say that and say something else.
Well,
they'll try.
Here's what would happen in that event.
Yeah.
Hopefully all of the things that you're concerned about, the federal government and the other provinces for that matter, trying to block Alberta's departure, will have riled up enough people in Alberta that if they do say that, then Alberta will give them the middle finger and say, see you.
Yep. And that could happen. That could definitely happen. We're not there yet. Right? We're not there yet. As my friend that I was chatting with the other night still has hope. Still has hope. Until I explained some of this presentation to her. Now she's thinking about it a little bit differently. One conversation at a time. One conversation at a time. Well, here's the facts. Well, yeah, but we could just, everybody's going to be nice. They're going to want to open this up and make it more fair for us. All right, let's talk about that. Let's just show. Right? Like, I mean, we all know this. But most people don't. I've walked into rooms filled with people who want independence, and they did not know everything that I just told them. They just didn't. Maybe 2 or 3 did at best. Most did not. So this is the message to get to the ladies. We can't fix it. It's got nothing to do with being angry. It's got nothing to do with stomping our feet and walking out of the room and giving them the silent treatment for a week and a half until somebody apologizes first. It's nothing to do with that. The system is by design. It's not broken. It's by design. And there's only one way for us to get out of it, and that's this Clarity Act. Now, exactly as you say, if we go through all the motions and all the everything, and they continue to stop and stop and stop and stop, well, then we'll take the next move.
The Clarity Act requires the federal government and the other participants in the process to negotiate in good faith.
Yep.
In good faith actually has a legal meaning. So if in the event that the federal government tries to do unreasonable things to stand in the way of the process,
yeah,
we can show the unreasonableness of it and move on in spite of their objections.
Exactly right. And that's exactly what we have to do. Did anybody follow what happened in El Salvador and how their president was finally president? Do you guys know the story behind that? Isn't that fascinating? Like he went, so that was a multi-year battle. It was so corrupt down there. So corrupt down there. The gangs were running the country, right? And this guy and a bunch of his friends all got together and they felt moved by God to do this. And at every turn, all of the corrupt politicians and the gangs were beating them down, and they would be back with their lawyers and the law books all open across the table. Okay, now what do we do? Now what do we do? Back in the game again. Beaten down. Now what do we do? Now what do we do? Back in again. Back in again. They just used the laws that were there against the establishment that was there and eventually won. And look at that country now. You can actually go visit it. You couldn't do that before. You couldn't do that. So this is the same playbook that we've got to use. We have to use it. Something else to consider. I also hear, oh, all you independent voices, you need to get under one umbrella and one banner. No. No. People ask me, well, are you a member of APP? No, I'm not. Not because I don't like you people. I love you people. I think you're all very amazing. But I'm not. Because remember what I said about pulling it down from the inside? If Angela and I are talking, and you folks at APP are talking, and we've got Parker over here, and we've got Tim Hoven over there, and we've got so-and-so over there, that's one hell of a game of whack-a-mole for these guys to play, to try and get us to all shut up. We really do. We need more voices. We don't need more groups. We need more voices. Now, do know we're all talking to one another. We're all pulling the rope in the same direction, even if we're not all under the same roof. Furthermore, this has happened. Somebody in the independence movement says something really dumb. And then the whole thing goes down. Never, right? Says something really dumb, and then it looks bad on all of us, and the whole thing goes down. If we've got all these folks talking, well, that's just one person. Everybody else is not necessarily affiliated with them. So that's why at this moment we need to leave the politics out of it and just focus on the people. We need to grow the population base that is ready for this, that wants to know this. Leave the politicians out of it. Don't worry about them. Our premier has said that she will go forward. If this is what the people want, she will go forward. She will respect the referendum. She knows her political life is on the line with this. She knows that. Let's just support her in that instead of being miserable about it. And we will get to the finish line. I truly believe that. Even with all of these stops and starts and stumbles along the way, that just gives us more time to get out there and keep talking, right? Not name calling. I'm getting tired of that too. No more name calling. Just have a conversation with your neighbors. Because you're not going to get anywhere. I mean, we told our kids, don't call your friends names, right? I mean, we told them that, and yet somehow as adults we're doing it. Like, how stupid is that? No more of that. No more back talking. No more trash talking. Just share the facts. That's it. Just share the facts. Share the facts that I'm sharing. Share the facts that Mitch is sharing. Share the facts that Dennis is sharing. Share the facts that Tanner is sharing. That's it. No fighting. We don't need to do any of that at all. And that's how we're going to get to this, is by staying together throughout the whole thing. Don't let them tear us apart. Just don't. It doesn't make any sense to do that. And for those that are not comfortable going to the big rallies, and there's a lot of people that are not comfortable going to the big rallies. They don't want to go there, especially if they don't consider themselves conservative. But they might still be curious about this message. Get Angela and I to come to your house. We will explain this in a very small group session, in a setting, over a cup of coffee, maybe a glass of wine if you got some in the fridge. Like, it's all good. That's how we're going to reach this. That's how we're going to get this done. Now, I've obviously told you guys everything you pretty much already knew. If you think about people in your life who aren't here yet, was there anything on these slides that might reach them that they didn't already know? Yes, I'm seeing some nods. To help them see we can't make it any better. We just can't. So we'll move forward to our own independence and dream a little bit. And this is how we always end our meetings, is let's dream a little bit. So let's think about CPP, for example. People are all up in arms. Oh my gosh, I'm not going to have a pension. Well, I don't have one anyway. But regardless, hang on. I want to tell a story. So let's think about CPP. If we were... Well, even if we had our own APP, not Alberta Prosperity Project, Alberta Pension Plan, okay? Let's say we had our own pension plan, our own Alberta pension plan. How many of you know that if you die before you've gotten all your money back, you ain't getting it. Nobody's getting it.
We're going to have a Q&A question at the very end, please.
Yeah, we'll have Q&A at the end.
Well, I'm just saying, last comment.
Yeah, right. You know, right?
We're going to have
You're
a
not
question at the
getting
Q&A.
it. Okay. Yeah, you know you're not getting it. You're just not. So wouldn't it make more sense? Like, it's your money, right? Shouldn't whatever's left in that account go to your beneficiaries rather than into the ether? I think so. That's something we could do. We can't do that right now under the CPP. We're under lock, stock, and barrel with that. We can't touch it. There's nothing we could do. But if we had our own pension, we could do that. The other thing that we could do, how many of you have paid into unemployment insurance? Let's call it what it is. You don't need insurance when you're employed. I don't know why they call it EI now. It's unemployment. How many of you have paid into that and never collected a dime? Right? Wouldn't it and I don't have any problem with these social programs, by the way. I think we do need them because there are a lot of people that maybe they don't make enough money to put things aside or they don't have a trusted financial advisor or whatever. So I don't have a problem with these social programs. But wouldn't it make sense if you didn't use any of that to tack it on to your pension? It's your money. Right. Furthermore, tax-free. I agree. Why should your pension be taxed? With a clean slate, we can do that. There's no reason we can't. And people are worried, oh, AIMCO's going to do it. Why? Why would AIMCO, why is that the automatic? I don't think AIMCO needs to have anything to do with it. I think we take 5 or 6 people, men, women alike, still only 2 genders in Alberta, by the way, but 5, 6 people who are very good at this, who have a track record that are good at this, and they can be the managers of the fund. Why not?
They can do a lot better. They got 1.something%.
Exactly. They can do amazingly better. Let them be the managers of the fund, and you get back not only what you put in, but the growth. It has nothing to do with how many hours you worked, how much you made, or anything. It has everything to do with how much you contributed and how much it grew. That makes sense to me. I think we could do that. But we can't do that right now. Same with the EI. Also, at the EI, wouldn't it feel much better, and this is very selfish and I don't care, to know that that EI is going to your neighbors when they need it? And not somebody who came over here to make our money to go back over there to live off of much less expenses than we have here, but had to work less to get it. Right? Say it out loud, yeah. I think I said it. It's all good. But that's what happens. Is people from the East come here, they work exactly the amount of weeks that they have to work, making our high wages, and then they take that and go back. And I have no problem with people who come here to work. I don't care. Don't come here to take advantage of us. That's where I have a problem. So there's 2 things we could do right off the top with pension and employment insurance. You get all your money back that you put in and more because there's interest on it. We can't do that right now. Once we're our own country, and EI I don't think we could do until we are our own country, so that's even more pressure to put on. Once we're our own country, let's talk about health care. Right? Think of what we could do. We could be the go-to destination. We have got so many brilliant minds in this province. We have got so many great resources in this province. We could be a go-to destination instead of people like my aunt who just went to Mexico to get a hip. Why is that even happening? I mean, she loved her time in Mexico, but that shouldn't be the case. Now, there are changes being made to prevent that from having to be the case, but we're not there yet. We're not there yet. There are so many healthcare systems around the world that we could learn from. Why reinvent the wheel? Let's just take the best of all of them and create something that works so that we don't have the lights turned off in the MRI room because, nobody's allowed to work it. Sorry. Or surgeons sitting at home because, sorry, you're not allowed to have the surgical salon that day. Like, who comes up with this crap when there's people in need and waiting lists as long as from the top of this province to the bottom? We could do away with all of that. Education. There's another sore spot with a lot of people. I don't have any problem with people coming to our province from out of country to get an education here. I have a problem when they come here and they take the place of our kids. And that's what's happened. Because those kids from other countries pay more. And the universities want that money, not the money. But then everybody's complaining that, oh, well, our kids don't want to go to school. No, actually, they're not being accepted. If we boil right down to it. They're not being accepted. I have a big problem with immigrants, temporary foreign workers, coming here when we can't look after ourselves. We do not have the resources to look after ourselves, let alone bring more people in to have to feed. I volunteer at the food bank every week in Sherwood Park, and the numbers continue to grow. Why? I mean, I have a lot of theories that I'll tell you off camera and off record, but it's not good. It is not good. And again, I don't care if you come here, but when I hear about a local restaurant in we're Hamlet, but in my hamlet of Sherwood Park, even though it's not a hamlet, but anyways, that's another story. A local grocery store who advertised in another country for workers and then paid for that worker to come here to work, and then I see on Facebook, same grocery store putting out an ad for that same position, and all these comments, well, you didn't call me, I put in 3 resumes. How come my kid can't get a job there? Da-da-da-da-da-da. Well, I wonder how come. Subsidized. Their wages are subsidized. That has to stop. It has to stop. And there's only one way that we can do it. I heard a story this week about a lady in Calgary has lived here for 10 years trying to get her permanent residence. She's married. She's doing all the things. She's contributing. She's got a job, all of that. And the federal government has been dragging their heels on, and she's one of the ones that should have it, dragging their heels on giving her her permanent residency, and now she's pregnant. And no OBGYN will look at her unless she's got $20,000 in the bank because she doesn't qualify for health care. What the actual heck is that? Right? Yet we've got people coming in, and if you go to any emergency room, again, I'm not saying we don't want you here. I'm saying we don't have room right now. We got to get our own selves figured out, and we got to stop apologizing for feeling that way. We've got to stop apologizing for feeling that way. When we truly are an independent nation of our own, the country of Alberta, and we've got our feet firmly planted underneath us, with all of our ducks in a row, all of our constitution is in place, our new government is in place, and please do not ask to do the Westminster system, because that's what got us into this mess to begin with. Our new government is in place, we've had our elections, we've got a president and senators, or whatever it's going to look like. We will be able to truly advertise ourselves as the last best West, because we will be. And that's when we can open the doors, and we will decide who comes in. Not somebody from Ottawa who wants to water down our vote. And that's the long and the short of it. So with that, let's go to questions.
Can you just turn on the light, please, for a second? Oh, where's the lights? Oh. Okay, gotcha. Okay.
So, a lot of times when people talk about this, they compare this to the Quebec situation, right? And I happened to grow up in Quebec and ended up leaving Quebec because of what was going on in the 70s.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the fundamental reason given in the Quebec situation was that the people had a unique culture, a unique language, that is distinctly different than the rest of Canada.
Yeah.
A little bit harder for us to say that here.
Is it though? No, it's not. I think our culture, our uniqueness is just different, right? So, okay, they speak French and we predominantly speak English over here. So that's our language. As far as culture goes, We love to work. We love to play hard. We love our neighbors. We love our family. We love to support local. We are so intertwined in one another's lives without even knowing it, right? That's our culture. That's our culture. It's harvest. How many times in this province, when a farming family has been in trouble, everybody shows up with their combines? That's our culture. That's our culture. How many times have we had natural disasters and people you don't even know show up to help? That's our culture. Quebec doesn't have that. You know what Quebec has? When they had a power outage because they had a really, really bad ice storm, unless you could speak French, you weren't allowed to come in there and help them put themselves back together. That's their culture, and that's a true story. Here, when McMurray is burning, people are lining up on 63 with water and food to help everybody get out of there. That's our culture. Another story, just because I'm from Fort McMurray and I still have family up there. Another story from Fort McMurray and that fire that nobody knows. There was a Facebook page. Every community has their gossip page, right? So on this Facebook page, on the gossip page, there was a mom, single mom, who lived in one part of town that was actually the furthest from the exit. And she says, I don't have a vehicle. Can someone take me downtown to get on the bus? Because they had buses that were kind of corralling everybody. And so this one gentleman who a family member of mine happens to know, this is how I know the story. So this gentleman got in his car and his wife got in her car and they went to where this lady lived because she put her address up on the Facebook because you got nothing to lose at this point. Your house is probably going to burn down anyway. And handed her the keys and said, here's my phone number. Call me when you get to Edmonton. Who does that? Albertans do that. Albertans do that. What about the fires that were just outside of Drayton Valley and Entwistle and everybody's livestock was in absolute trouble? So many people showed up with their trailers to make sure that those livestock got out of there. On top of that, how many people were told, just write your phone number on the hooves of your horses, let them go, when we find them, we'll call you. And people corralled around. That's our culture. That's our culture. Nobody else has that. Saskatchewan has that.
This isn't a question. Make an observation. There's three things that we have to deal with. We have to deal with the fiscal aspect of independence.
Yeah.
We have to deal with the emotional impact of independence,
Yeah.
and we have to deal with the. Well, never mind. I know the third one, but nobody cares.
Oh.
But it's called. The third thing is education, which is what APP is doing.
Fantastic
But
job.
short story. We had a friend over for dinner the other night. This man is not ignorant. He holds a PhD.
Yeah.
His question to me was, well, my pension is a federal pension. I'll lose it. This is a PhD saying this.
Yeah.
And I had to explain to him that, no, you won't lose it. That's a pension fund, that they have a legal obligation to continue paying it.
That's right.
Doesn't matter whether you live in Alberta or Venezuela or Mexico or Timbuktu.
That's right.
They have to keep paying your pension.
Yeah.
So we have to overcome that kind of ignorance, and the only way you can do it is with calm conversation.
Exactly. Thank you. Yeah, you're exactly right.
Well, thank you so much for giving this speech. And actually, I attended one of your other lectures, and you got me thinking. And it coincided with the Canada First movement, okay? And what happened in that Canada First, that in my social group, was all of these people suddenly got such a joy of becoming the most extreme elbows up society, telling people, oh, it's coming to here, and oh, you can volunteer there, and blah, 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 right?
Yeah.
But it got me thinking, here's what the problem is, and this is the message we've got to change. We cannot continue to suggest independence or separation. Most of those people we can ask, okay, is there something you'd like changed in the Constitution? Because the Clarity Act just requires the Constitution be reopened, right? Mm-hmm. And negotiated. And First Nations can get in on that too with the India Act, right? So is there something, anything? Is it a Senate? that we're being gypped on Senate seats? Is there any criminal code? Do you agree that the murderers should be out the same day on bail? Like, there's always something that touches everyone. So if our message changed to let's just get the referendum so that we can get the Clarity Act and explain to them, look, after the negotiations, then we'll decide. We're going to have another vote. We're going to have more discussion. Because everyone is afraid that Canada First showed that everyone is terrified of, say, bringing in a car they know nothing about. They haven't got the contract in front of them, right? They have no trust. So give them the trust with directing the message to, let's just vote for the referendum. You can always change your mind. After the Constitution is negotiated, you can always say, nope, I want to stay in Canada, and vote that way. But we want to see the negotiation. We want to see the contract. So my message is, the less we can mention all of the fabulous things about what we would get from, independence, and just direct it to, here, we just want a referendum for the Clarity Act. The Clarity Act will allow us sovereignty if we decide after negotiations, but direct it towards that.
That might depend who you're talking to, right? And that's the thing. When we're talking about this topic, know your audience, right? Know your audience. And that's why with the guys, we can be a little bit more aggressive. I'm an exception to the norm. I have no problem being in the room with a bunch of guys, and I'll go toe-to-toe with all of you. But that's not the norm for women, right? Women are a little bit different. There are some who say, your wife is like that too? Congratulations. Isn't it awesome? I know. And we're still married, right? It's amazing. Oh, my husband's just deaf, so I think that's what happened. And he blames it on me. But so it depends who you're talking to, right? If you're talking to moms, if you're talking to grandmas, if you're talking to teachers, they're another one. If you're talking to nurses, know your audience. If you're talking to one of my sons is an engineer. That's a conversation, because his engineer's minds just go in directions that the rest of us have no capabilities of. But that's okay. We can figure out how to talk to them. Know your audience. Some people, they'll be comfortable with saying, let's just bust open this Constitution and see what happens. I had another guy who said, no, I am not voting on that referendum until I know what the plan is. And I said, but there's going to be stuff we don't know. We don't know what we don't know until we get there to cross the bridge. But again, know your audience, right? He's a guy who likes his paycheck every 2 weeks. He knows what day he's got to work. He knows what day he's going to get his groceries on. His brain works like that. It's regimented like that. And then there's me, people like me, the entrepreneurs, the bulls in the china shop. Let's jump in. We'll figure out how to swim once we get in the water. So you have to know who you're talking to share the exact same message, but share it in a way that works for them.
Hi, you mentioned municipal election coming up.
Yeah.
It's been said by some of our speakers who've been going around that we need to be involved in our municipalities as well if we're going to have them prepared for this discussion. The towns, the urban councils are notoriously leftist, even though they'll say they're not in a party and they're not partisan. I've been trying to get feedback from people who are interested in running. It's only incumbents.
Yeah,
everyone else, understandably, is nervous. Really, all you need to do is be 18, live in that municipality, and have a desire to represent your people. So I guess I'm just taking the opportunity to remind people, please get involved. Christians especially, they think Jesus will take care of me. I don't have to do anything. That's the wrong message, but it's one I've been hearing.
Yeah.
please, please, please speak up. So if you have something to add to that, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, I'll be running in our municipal election this year. So my paperwork is getting put together right now. In Strathcona County, we've got to get a handful of signatures, and then there's 6 or 7 other pieces of paper that I've got to fill out, and I will be sending that in next week. So yeah, it's incumbent upon us to literally get in the trenches. Municipal elections are so much more important than people realize, because that's literally your backyard. School boards too, yeah, I'll get to that in a second. You're right. It's literally your backyard. These are the folks that make the bylaws that determine where you can park, what you can do on your property, what you can't do on your property, how many property taxes, how much in property taxes you're going to pay, all of that stuff. That your day-to-day life is affected by municipal governments. I heard a story the other day, and I have every reason to believe it's true, from someone who is also running in a different city. And he said when he's been involved in politics for decades, and when Smilin' Jack Layton realized that there was no way the NDP was going to win federally, they turned their attention to municipalities and school boards. And we're bearing the fruit of that right now. And I'm with you. The Christians who say, oh, no, it's okay, Jesus doesn't want me to get into politics, have not read their Bibles. From Genesis to Revelation is politics. Everywhere, on every page. So, yes, if you are called, if you hear the Lord tapping on your shoulder saying, buck up, buttercup, that's my gospel according to Kathy. He probably doesn't talk to you like that, but you got to go. You have to go. Because, there we go. See? School boards are another. Yeah, I do. I will send it to Bonnie, and Bonnie will email everything out.
Okay, so you see those orange signs on the side on the wall. You see them, all of them.
Yep.
I want everybody here in this room to take a picture of those. That is where this recording is going to be published. So I repeat. Everybody who has a cell phone, everybody, no exception to the rule, take a picture, at least 2 or 3 pictures of the picture, and share with your friends, like mandatory. Thank you.
Thank you. But yeah, and you're right, we got to share this out in all the different ways that we possibly can. You can find me on every social media thing there is. I do have my personal Facebook page. If you send me a friend request, I will politely decline that, because I want to try and spare my family some of my political antics. But I do have a blog page that should show up, and by all means, feel free to follow me there. All my stuff is on there. X, I'm really busy on. That's kind of where the most fun takes place. And then I'm also on LinkedIn as well. AWIN, Alberta Women's Independence Network, that Angela and I started, is literally a nothing burger. Like, we're not registered. We're not a society. You can't take us down. There's not a board. We're just 2 women who won't shut up. We have also a Twitter or an X-Files. Yeah, we have those too. An X page and a Facebook page. The summer has been a little bit slow because, well, she runs a bed and breakfast, so her world is pretty busy right now. But we will get back at it in September. And then you'll, I guess, if you're so inclined, you can watch the journey that I'll be on to see if I get elected. I don't know, as a councillor in my municipality. But it is so important to do that, and those school boards. And yes, you might be in a minority. If you do that, you might be one of 2 or 3 people on that council or on that school board who's ready to pull the rope in the wrong direction. I mean, let's face it, we as conservatives and as Christians, we completely crapped the bed here. We stayed home, and we didn't get involved. Let's just own it.
Are you putting this on your YouTube channel too?
I don't know. I'll have to talk to Max about how to do that. I can barely operate my phone, let alone not.
I want her to put it on their Women's Independence.
I know, right? I just need like 2 thumbs and I got it. But Max, he's the guy. He'll figure it out. Thank you.
I just wanted to point out that you're getting into the trenches. You want to run in your municipal election.
Yeah.
We've been in the trenches since 1990.
Yeah.
We've run in a lot of elections throughout Alberta. It's a process that takes a lot of energy and a lot of dedication. Now, I'm getting way closer to 80 than I am to 70. That fire doesn't burn anymore. Yeah. And I would love to ask the people who don't have a head full of gray hair and a back full of pain from the last 40 years of work, those who are a little bit younger and have the energy, I'll support them. I'll give them all the information that I've learned over the years running in political elections. I'll do whatever I can to help them. Yeah. But I'm not doing it anymore.
Yeah. And that's a fair statement, isn't it? You put the work in, you paved the way for us to now take the baton and to continue to go. And that's wonderful. That's exactly what we need, are those folks that say, yeah, I'm done. I've learned a lot, but you've got the energy, you've got the chutzpah. Let me help you get through and know what some of the things you're going to find. I mean, at the end of the day, there's nothing new under the sun. So it will all be the same. It might just look different on social media than it did in a newspaper or whatever, but the problems are still the same. The other question I get very often, and I'm actually a little bit surprised it didn't come up yet tonight, is where are the kids? Where's the youth? I can tell you we are. We are. So the youth, and here's one right here.
Can I answer the question?
Only if it's the same answer as mine.
Yes.
Okay.
About the youth. Okay. So in regards to the youth question here, I was in Braden about 2 weeks ago with an EPP event from Jason Levine and Michael Wagner. You can always look it's on the YouTube channel, by the way, so you can look that up. Basically what happens is that in town hall meetings, we can say that what we see is the over 55 and plus age category. We almost never see the young people, and the reason why you never see the young people because A, they're working, B, they're raising kids if they can, and a combination of both. Also, the support for the 25, the millennials and the Gen Zs, the Gen Z is very high. The reason why we don't see them is because they're busy, but they're not on social media. I'll say that from any live stream I've done, because I'm watching the comments, I often see comments like, I'm going to share with my mom, I'm going to share that with my uncle, I'm going to share that with my grandfather. That is very, very extremely common. It's amazing the amount of traffic we get from the young folks, including myself. It's just that they don't go necessarily to town hall meetings like this one. Also, Mike Warner said something about it, which is the people who are pulling the strings or running the, let's say the town halls or who are running as a canvassers and all those things, they're not the young folks. They're here. So you're essentially the base. But what Michael Wagner was saying is that those people who are essentially in the younger category, eventually they're going to be in this room eventually. So there's going to be a transfer of skills that will naturally happen. So the young population is not here. Don't panic.
That's right. Yeah, they're there. They're on this list right here. That's all the online outlets. That's where they are.
The way that this manifests itself, you can see this in the polling.
Please turn off the cell phone, please.
It's a good song, though.
You can see this in the polling. We have lots of gray hair here, and there's lots of gray hair in many of these town hall meetings. Yeah. But when the major polling companies go out and ask the questions, then the results are significantly higher than you would expect given the attendance at these meetings. That's right. And that's the people who are so busy paying the bills, raising the kids, working. They, too, want the same things that we want, and they pay attention to what we put out. Yeah. Both from here and on social media. They pay attention to what we're saying.
That's right. Yeah, it's a different generation. They have a different way of getting their information. Like, we're the ones that, like, let's face it, we're the ones that were at bush parties every Friday and Saturday. Like, that's just, like, we were just always together and out socializing and all the rest. And the next generation, man, they don't even go out for coffee together. We do. but they don't. And, I'll be honest, some of that I blame on the mandates. Those teenagers in their most formative years of socializing and figuring out how to interchange with people and connect with people was taken away because they were told everybody was going to die. So stay home.
We are all going to die.
But
The problem I have is they don't even make phone calls.
No.
It's this.
yeah. I know. When my boys call me, I'm like, oh, no. Especially boys.
I just wanted to say something that most people that don't want to get involved is
Yeah.
because they're so concerned of the natives.
Oh, yeah, I got a story.
They don't understand or don't believe that we could legally separate. They don't, and until I've been involved with this for quite a while.
Yeah.
Until I just went to the last speech here just a week ago that was out at Pigeon Lake there.
Yeah.
Even I did not know that if Alberta was to separate, that the natives, how can I say it? How was it explained that if they don't want to be part of they don't want to separate, it doesn't mean the rest of Alberta can't.
Correct. They don't get a veto.
Their land, they only have so much land.
That's right. Yeah.
And so only their land, just them, could remain as Canada, but that doesn't stop the rest of Alberta wanting to separate.
Correct.
And I think we need to clarify more of this, a lot more, because I see too many my own friends that are too scared to get involved in this. They're against it because they're going to stand up for the natives first, because they think we're going to screw them.
Right. So fun story. One of the talks that I got to do in a northern community was surrounded by reserves. Now, I grew up by reserves, so it just was a homecoming to me, really. Every time I get to go up there, I just love it. It's beautiful in northern Alberta. If you've never gone, you really should. And there was a lady that came at the request of a friend of hers who was off of one of those reserves. And it was obvious. I mean, she had the darker skin and all the rest, but she didn't say anything while she was there. She was the only one who was brave enough to come and to hear what I had to say. And her friend was gracious enough to ask me, pepper me, actually, with all the tough questions. And I was so glad that she did. I was so glad that she did. And so I answered them. And I prefaced it saying, I am the least politically correct person on the planet. If you're expecting me to sugarcoat this, I will not. And as far as I'm concerned, when I'm looking at you, and I grew up around those reserves, I went to school with the kids that lived on those reserves, I know some of what happens, and I'm not certain how this is a bad thing for you either if we get away from Ottawa. Because if anybody has been under the socialist thumb of Ottawa, it's those that live on those reserves. And wouldn't it make so much more sense for the people who live there, who want just as much freedom as we do, to finally own their land? Like, people who don't know how it works on reserves don't understand. All the natives that live on those reserves don't own anything. They're told, oh, this is the house you're going to live in until somebody else wants it, and then you're going to move. And that's it's so evident, right, when you drive past them. So this was the conversation we had, and it was a tough one. And I said, wouldn't it be so nice to go home to your own house on your own property? Like, first of all, you could mortgage the house, you could rent it out, you could sell it, you can do whatever you want. You can't do that. You don't have the freedom to do that right now. Wouldn't it be so nice to be able to, sure, if you want to have some sort of a different government structure that will work better for you? Because what's happening right now, isn't that great? How could you not want to vote for that? And by the way, every single one of those natives on those reserves vote in Alberta elections. The chief doesn't decide. The people do. The people that live on those reserves decide. They get to vote on that referendum, not just the chief. So they will decide it. And after all of that conversation, the lady, and I was trying to read her, but she was good. She was keeping a pretty straight face. I wasn't sure where this was going to land. And 3 days later, I got an email from the gal that invited her saying, thank you so much. Because my friend went back to her reserve to tell the people who are her neighbors, who are her friends, who are her family, that they might be looking at this wrong. So it's those kinds of conversations that we need to have.
Hold on. I was just going to give you a microphone.
Another point on those reserves, a lot of the chiefs are the ones that get bought off, and they decide what to tell the people, right?
Yep, exactly.
So that's why they're in poverty and they don't get anything.
Yeah.
I know some people on the reserve get $200 a month. Terrible.
Yep.
200 in Saskatchewan.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really wrong. It's really wrong. Well, isn't that the truth, right? That's what it is. And then another conversation. I have conversations with people all the time about this one-on-one, which is really the best way to continue to share the message and to get people thinking. Someone said to me, well, there's how many different nations in Alberta? And I said, oh, I don't know. I honestly don't know. I don't pay attention to all of that. And he said, well, what if some of them don't want to leave Canada? What if they like living the way that they are? And I said, well, then they stay. They can choose. Well, but then what about all the treaty land? I said, no. That covers an area, but it's only the reserve land that belongs to the feds that they live on. Like, people just don't know how it's designed. So once you sort that out, and then he says, so you mean that if some of those reserves don't want to leave, then they'll just like be a circle of land that still belongs to Canada? And I said, yeah, I guess so. He says, well, what if they want to leave and come into Alberta? And I said, then I guess they can. Like, I don't see any reason why we can't still be good neighbors. We just will operate differently. They can be a nation within a nation. Like, I think you're overthinking this. But it was so much fun watching him really parse this out in his head. I said, I'm not saying it's ideal. I would love for all of us. I mean, let's all go together. Could you imagine what we could accomplish if we all went together? It'd be so amazing. It'd be so lovely. But, you know, if some don't and they live on reserve and say they don't want to go, well, then I guess they don't want to go. Yeah.
Last question.
I just want to make an observation to the gentleman that was talking about the fear of the Aboriginal influence. If you read the treaties, they're very clear.
Yeah.
The words in the treaties are very clear. Cede forever the rights to the lands defined in this treaty. All they retained by agreement with the Crown at that time was over some of the territory the right to continue to hunt, fish, and subsistence live on other areas. But the only area that belongs to them that they didn't cede to the Crown are the reserves.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, that's right. And it's probably one of the saddest things, really, for me to think about, that there are these groups of people in our province who are so sheltered, perhaps from reality, right? Like I end up on different reserves for different reasons, and I was chatting with the teachers in the school on this one, and I said, well, how many students do you have? And so she named, or gave me a number of how many students that were there and the different grades that they were in, and I said, oh, okay, well, what's your graduation rate? And she immediately went quiet and got into like apologetics mode kind of thing. Like, she felt like she needed to explain away maybe the numbers. And she told me that it's actually 50%. And I looked at her and I went, man, that's awesome. Like, what are you doing that you're keeping these kids in school, 50% of them, all the way to grade 12? And immediately she's like, oh, okay, Kathy gets it. She understands. What a disservice that the teachers in these schools feel that they need to apologize. There's reasons for that. What a disservice. Why not give them an opportunity to change that too? It just makes no sense to me. Makes no sense to me. That was supposed to be the last question. Does anybody have any lingering? Good. Thank you.